Hey, friends, you've got this part of the video. You've got the live, unedited edition, Home Gadget Geeks, Thursday night, 2nd of November, 2023. A few seconds before 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone. If you've got this any other time than that, you've got the recorded version. That's okay. You're on YouTube. Hang tight. We'll get started here in just a moment. And we've kicked off the live stream stuff so folks can join us. Let me get this set here before we get started. I am guestless tonight. I see a few of you out there. John, I saw John checking in. Ken, good to see you. Tony, good to see you out there. Brian, thanks for checking in. And John did beat you. He popped in a little bit earlier there. John, I think John's on his phone at this point. So Ken's checking in. Good evening. And Brian, hey, everyone. Brian, I've had 2 long weeks. Not Tony Rayner weeks. Just don't get me wrong. I have nothing to complain about, but it's been 2 long weeks. I wasn't going to podcast tonight. Maybe it's because of this. Maybe this light's not on. There we go. Should brighten up things a little bit. So for the last 2 weeks, I've had 2 guests scheduled, outside guests, not the regulars, outside guests. And they've canceled on me. One said he had COVID. So I took last week off and hung out with my wife. We went on a date, had some dinner. It was nice. But this week, you kind of sensed it, Tuesday I sent the note, hey, you still good for this week? Didn't hear anything Wednesday. Then today about 4:30, I used a PR firm to book this guest. And they were like, oh yeah, the guest's not available any longer. So apparently, John, apparently they don't know who I am, but that's okay. So, when you're going to book guests, I'll talk about it during the show. When you book guests that way, you always run that risk, right? If I have Gavin or Jay or Dave or Uyghur, allegedly, you can almost always guarantee if you ask them, they're going to be ready. I don't know if I've ever had, one of our regular guests not show up or forget. Everybody's been pretty good about that, but you get, sometimes you get the guests, the non-regular guests check in. Sorry, I'm trying to set something in the studio here. You get the non-regular guests, they just don't know. So they commit to some things, these startups and stuff, and you can't always trust them. So we'll see if we can get them back. The good news is, hey, Joe, good to see you. Joe's checking in. Good to see you, Joe. Good news is that it's okay. I have some stuff to update you guys. I have some health stuff to update you guys on, my own personal health tonight. Some significant things are going on there that I want to bring you in. Yeah. And Tony, John over there at Lime Tech, he's good. He always shows. I do need to get them back on. Maybe first of the year. We'll do that. So I got some health updates, some significant health updates to get you guys in on. A little bit of health gadget tech, some stuff we've been goofing around with here. And then I'm contemplating changing a format. That probably sounds a little more. That sounds a little bigger than it is, but we'll get there. Probably a shorter show tonight, so you guys should probably be out of here in 30 minutes. I say that. Here's what I want you guys to do, though. If you've got any topics, if you got any questions, things you think from the past I should answer, I tried to think through some of those things, like, is there any follow-up stuff of things I've said? Or if you guys want to think of those, throw them in the chat. We'll get started. I'm getting a little more comfortable with the solo format. I used to just really hate it. You guys know that. You guys know I hate doing it this way. But I don't know. Tonight was a little bit different. So, yeah. Well, John says not showing up for an agreed appearance is really unprofessional. Yeah, well, I don't disagree. And this is a situation where I'm using, I get these email blasts from time to time from these PR firms. Hey, would you like to have so and so talk about such and such on your podcast? And that's a big blanket, right? Just a big flat blasted out kind of thing. Then I'm sure they get a bunch of responses, and I'm sure they kind of vet them, like, "Oh, who is this?" And we'll talk about it on the show because I have an idea for a change. But here's what gets me: nobody wants to do this at 8 o'clock Central on a Thursday night. Like that's first Thursdays are the new Fridays, right? For a lot of people, COVID has kind of changed some things so that a lot of folks, because Fridays for a lot of folks, they're not going into the office anymore. For those that are in the office, they're not going into the office anymore. And then if they are, well, no, if they're not, they're probably goofing around on Fridays, just to be honest. So, so it's you getting them to come out on a Thursday night sometimes, is a little harder than it seems. They're kind of not everybody wants to do it. We've been doing it together, you guys and me for 12 years, but not everybody wants to do it. I mean, this is why we have 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 or whatever we get on this. And Tony says, tell us who it is and we'll never buy their products. I'm not sure these last two guests you would have bought their products. They had interesting stories. They had interesting stories. I thought they'd make interesting interviews, but it just didn't work out. So then, they weren't like consumer gadget products type deal stuff. But one was one was two guys and some solar stuff, and the other one was technology, tech stuff for rental property for landlords and stuff. That's okay. I'll be honest, they probably won't. Uh, they probably won't. They won't. Don't call me. I'll call you. That's kind of the way it goes. Like I said, they kind of check things out, and then they're like, "Well, he's got a live show. It's Thursday night. I really don't want to do it I don't want to do it live." Tony, thanks for tweeting this as well. We'll appreciate that. Um, and they may look at um they may look at the audience size and just kind of make that decision in the end and say, that's not really as big, not as big as I was hoping for, whatever. That's okay too. That's all right too. It's okay. We only had Jamie Siminoff from Ring here. Not just kidding. I listen, as one, I've had one, maybe two. The guys over at oh shoot, no. I should have said this until I knew I could say what's the IFTT? Help me out here. What's the IFTT one? That Zapier. There we go. Um, Zapier. They've made it big. They've definitely made it big. Tony, Tony asks, how's the best guest Sammy Collison doing? She's doing well. Maybe talk about that during the show. She is doing well in her job. Kevin says, quality, not quantity. And that Sammy is working Thursday nights. That's so she gets home about this time. We'd have to delay it. Maybe I'll see if I can get her back. We'll get an update going from her. She's gotten quite sassy. Black Friday show, just so you guys know, next week Ed Sullivan joins us. He recently did a big event and used a whole bunch of tech in it. So Ed's going to join us next Thursday. He'll stay up late for me next week. Then the Black Friday episode is with Erin Lawrence. I planned it. I finally planned it right to get her on. She'll be on the 16th, that week before Thanksgiving. So it'll be all Black Friday stuff that we're talking about. So those are the next three coming up, and we're excited about it. Hey, if you're listening to us on Twitch, appreciate you guys checking in there as well. And appreciate the advertisement that I just got, but that's okay too. Brian says some of those startups may be better at being innovative with products or services, but not as good at other aspects of running the business. Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't be too hard on him, guys. Producer Bob says would have not wasted some time on some of the systems I've tested and built in the past. However, I probably would have had a monitor obsession. So if you want to, if you got questions, let's see what's the best way to do this. Yeah, just keep putting them in chat. I'll try to get to them. If things I should follow up on, we'll talk about Sammy. Let me write that down here. We'll put a Sammy update. And thanks for that. We'll do that towards the end of the show. She's doing. They're coming in right now. So maybe in the future we can do that. If you got things you want me to cover, throw them in chat and we'll get those covered. Brian, I agree. Ed's show next week should be super fun. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll get started here in just a second. If you're watching on YouTube, usually I have a guest. Maybe just stumble across this one. Maybe I'll do a real fancy clickbait title that has nothing to do with the show. Actually is. By the way, live folks, lots of super positive excuse me. Lots of super positive feedback on Dave McCabe's show. So Dave, thanks for joining me. It was good to have. And then it's always fun to have Gavin Campbell. He was back on. He's been on Entertainment 2.0, their show. Entertainment 2.0. I guess that's the name of the show. And he's been on there doing a great job filling in for Josh Pollard. So Bob says, what do you have to do in the winter for your OT stuff? Oh, flood monitoring? Yeah, okay, we'll say maybe a winter. Oh, I got a good idea on that. Winter-based IoT stuff. Yeah. Keep throwing those in chat. Good to see you guys. Thanks for coming out tonight. Again, a little health update from me and some health gadgets. Talk about, I got a question for you, not just you guys live, but for the 400 or 500 that listen to the podcast. I'll have a question for you guys. Think about changing the format or trying something new with it. A little Sammy update. Bob will cover what do you do? Especially with the Ring stuff. I got an interesting email from Ring, so we'll cover all those things. Keep dialoguing with me in chat if you would. I won't make it kind of a chat show. I think I'm ready to do that kind of stuff. Let me get a drink. I should have got water and not lemonade. It's going to dry me out. The other day at work, we had brunch. They served brunch. We had an awards ceremony and they served brunch. So we had like biscuits and gravy and this egg casserole thing. It was really good. And man, that biscuits and gravy, I drank 4 glasses of water that afternoon. It had so much salt in it. It was so good, but it dried me out. Tony says, yeah, I just realized I've been paying for Ring for who knows how long when I thought I'd cancel them. Yeah, it might be a good time. Let me add this to it. Good time to check for subscriptions. See, what else would it be? Subscriptions, get ready for taxes, change batteries. The live or the recorded, the podcast folks, they're appreciating you right now. They don't know that. They don't know how much they're going to appreciate you. But you guys working with me to get this kind of, well, maybe this is a new format, right? Jump in, spend 15 or 20 minutes getting some show stuff, making a live, and then just doing the thing. That'd be kind of fun. Producer Bob says salt. Yeah, it was salty. Joe says nothing like covering carbs with carb sauce. Totally. It was so good. God, I love biscuits and gravy. Bob says +1 for subscription on it. So we'll talk about that. John checking in. He says I installed a Ring alarm system I bought last Black Friday. Good job. John's kind of catching up on all his stuff. That's good. Unfortunately, Ken says, I have to drop dinner here. He's on the West Coast. Have a good time. Thanks, Ken. Always good to see you. I know this is 6 o'clock in the on the West Coast. It's amazing how that hour or two makes a difference, right? Between 8 and 6. When you're in your own time zone, maybe you're kind of eating or getting things ready. By 8, you're kind of winding down. Tony says, ever use Rocket Money? Yeah. No, I haven't. I just look at my credit card statement and you can kind of see it really isn't that hard. Just look at I run almost all my bills through the credit card. And so just look at the credit card statement. I reconcile let's talk about this on the show. Okay. You guys, I know, Tony, you make an excellent gravy. And I've seen you work on your biscuits on Twitter. Didn't sound right. Work on your biscuits on Twitter. So I've seen you post on those. These were excellent. I don't know how they did it. They must have stayed up all night. They were excellent biscuits. Even better gravy. Okay. Yeah, we're 15 in. Let's get this thing started. Here we go. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 589, recorded on November 2nd. That's the date, right? 2023. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the Average Guy.TV studios here in a beautiful Bellevue, Nebraska. We had some cold days, like maybe a week. It got cold. It's going to warm back up this weekend, which I'm looking forward to. Leaves, and it's fall here in the United States and in the West, in the Northern Hemisphere. And so we got some cleanup to do. It's like 20 degrees last weekend, but we'll get out there, get them mowed, get them cleaned up. It's not the end. You know how that goes. I still have a silver maple with some leaves that need to come. Probably have 3 weeks before all those leaves come down. But of course, we'll post a show. Very few, what I say, world-class show notes, because I don't really have any topics that have links tonight. So very few. But if you haven't been out to the averageguy.tv in a while, check it out. I made some changes out there. We got some things going on. I threw some ads on there. Sorry if you don't like the ads. Well, they pay a little bit, maybe $10 a month on the ads. A little intrusive. Sorry. I gave it a try. But if you haven't checked that out in a while, check it out now, theaverageguy.tv. By the way, the show notes have been getting more AI content in them, and I'm getting better at that. So we're getting more and more. I'll add a few AI at the bottom of the notes. It says more from Chat GPT or something like that. And then, so I disclose this stuff comes from Chat GPT, and trying to add some value. I'd love to know what you think about that stuff. A few of you are pretty helpful about letting me know what you think. We haven't checked out the show notes in a while. Check them out. Big thanks to Neil, who always sends me an email. I shouldn't say always, but pretty close. Sends me an email and with some feedback. Appreciate that. And so thanks for doing that. Big thanks to Gavin Campbell, who joined me 2 weeks ago. Took a week off. I almost had to cancel tonight. Last 2 guests have canceled on me, and it's okay. I got things going on. Whatever. Maybe they're big and important. But tonight I had some updates for you guys. But big thanks to Gavin Campbell, who filled in last week, 2 weeks ago. And great show. If you haven't caught it yet, head out to theaverageguy.tv/HGG589 and listen to it. Now, big thanks to our Patreon subscribers who keep the show running each and every week. We have a $5 plan if you want to join the team. And Bjorn just did. Appreciate that. He did that a couple weeks back. If you want to join the team, head out to theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. But big thanks to those folks as well. If you got a topic idea, and you want to join me for it, maybe you're an expert in something, or you got something you want to do, something you want to say, now would be a good time to send me an email. So Jim at theaverageguy.tv, send me an email. Even if you've never been on the show before, we'll give it a shot. If you're uncomfortable, I know some people are like, I don't want to be on the show, and I don't want to force you to be on the show. Still send me the idea. It's harder for me to do. I don't have a ton of time to do a ton of research on some of these kinds of things, but if you got an idea and you want to join me for it, maybe it's something you do, something with work, it's tech related. Hopefully you've been listening long enough. You know what we do here. Send me an email, Jim at theaverageguy.tv. I'd love to hear from you. All right. Tonight or today, whatever you're listening to this show, a couple things we're going to cover. One, I have a big health update for you, my own personal health. It's important. It's going to affect some things going forward. So I thought I'd fill you guys in. Since it was a solo show, I thought, okay, that'd work out pretty well. Everything's fine, but we got a health update coming up. I got some gadgets, some health gadgets we're going to cover. We're going to thinking. I got an idea for a format change. Want to get your feedback on it. We'll give it. I asked the guys earlier for some ideas. We're going to do an update on Sammy, and then we're going to talk a little bit about IoT over winter, and then some things that you might want to think about doing around your tech in the winter. Right? Get you thinking about when you think about changing your batteries on your cams. What else should you do? Right. So we'll talk about all those things. If you're listening live, still be throwing in the chat. I'll be watching. It distracts me a little bit, but that's okay. I think I can get through this as well. Okay. Big health updates. Some of you know, for the last decade or so, I've struggled with an enlarged prostate. And gentlemen, I'm 55. Gentlemen, usually in their 50s, sometimes earlier. It depends on your doctor and your family history and some of those kinds of things. But that during your physical is by far the most comfortable part of an entire physical for a man. It's getting their prostate examined. And so a lot of guys avoid it. And I'm not sure I avoided it. I think I'd had an exam before I started having trouble, but I began to have some trouble, going to the bathroom at one point. I was having some of those, difficult, urgent moments. And this was in my mid 40s. In fact, for some of you, it was happening while we were at the home service show meetups. It was the early signs of that, and I didn't know it was coming on. I got it checked out. We've been monitoring it for a while. Twice I've had biopsies taken. Generally, I shouldn't say generally. Sometimes large prostates means cancer, and so they continue to check for that. I've been on some meds to kind of help with it. I'm telling you this not to gross you out or to, bring attention to it. Well, I do want to bring attention to it because, gentlemen, I know this stuff's important. Like, and you should, Tony says checking the PSA is checking the PSA or not is a controversial topic. In my case, I'm glad. I'm glad we got it checked early, and get it checked often, so to speak. So, but it's gotten to the point, for me, the PSA scores are really high. That's PSA. They do a little bit of blood work. They got this number that they give you. I'm on some meds, so they got to double that number. It's really high, and I'm feeling the physical effects of it. So it's not comfortable. So we've been doing some tests, and Monday they went in and checked the muscle walls of the bladder, and they're starting to show some signs of wear, and they're a little concerned that they're a little concerned at that point. They're like, hey, you don't want these muscles to wear out, because if they do, there's not a lot of great ways to repair that. I'm no doctor, by the way. This is not medical advice. This has just been my experience. So in early December, so finally we've kind of gone through this for the last seven or 8 years. And so this December, we'll be having surgery to remove part of it. And they're not going to do a total removal. And this is kind of a newish procedure. They'll laser out some parts of it, pull it out. It's kind of disgusting to think about it. It will get a good, we'll get a good look at, not the best look, it'll get a good look at. They'll do a biopsy on all those, on that tissue sample to see. He said that's not generally where cancer comes from in prostate. So he's like, but we'll look at it, right? And so that's coming up in December. I don't think it's something to worry about, but it's going to be a big procedure. I will be. There's some great chat. I'll come back to the chat. You guys keep going in that. I'll come back to the chat here in just a second. Anytime you talk about a prostate, you're going to get some funny comments. So, yeah, it's a procedure, guys. I'll be, it's an overnight stay. I'll be in the hospital for a while. There'll be some recovery to it. I'll be out for a week or so from work, and maybe 2. Gallup's being great about this. It's basically take as much time as you need. But that'll free up the symptoms, of going to the bathroom that I have now, and to give me another 30 years before I need to worry about it again. Trust me. I mean, I think there's still a possibility at some point of having prostate cancer. So I'll continue to get that checked on a regular basis. I'll go back on meds. We'll do a PSA. We'll do exams. I'm sure I'll get the camera there again, or I'll leave it. I'll leave it to your imagination on what they have to do for that. But I know it's uncomfortable, but still get it checked, right? Um, so I've got this will be something I'll have to kind of work on the rest of my life. Nothing to be worried about for the most part. Percentages are low. Even prostate cancer is very, very treatable from what I've learned in this. And if it does get to that point, we'll just treat it. I'm young. That's the good news, right? Is we're thinking about this. I'm super young, and I'd rather handle these things, and I'm in pretty good shape. I'd rather handle these, although my back hurts tonight. I'd rather handle these things now than do them when I'm 70. It's just a lot better doing it that way. And I just think of my really good friend Mike Howard, who let that go a little too long. And so, gentlemen, if you're there, have that conversation with your doctor. Well, first of all, if you're not getting physicals, get a physical, at least one. Get some blood work done. Have a good chat with a doctor. If you're not doing, you need to do this. This is super important, right? Have them check everything, especially at our age. Anything 50 and above. Let him spend some time. My doctor's great. He sits down and talks with me. He's an older guy. I love hanging out with him. So have that conversation with your doctor and get that and other things that you should be concerned about, whatever that is, whatever. But don't let it go. Okay. Don't let these things go. Don't go a long time without checking them. Those kinds of things. They're important. And Brian says, glad you're bringing this up. It is important, and it is super important. And you don't have to be 50 to have these problems. I was 45 when it started kicking in. I could have ignored it. It was super uncomfortable though, and I'm kind of a baby when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I went in, and they're like, yeah, okay, we'll monitor it for a while. The good news is this surgery will hopefully has high propensity to fix some of those problems that I've been having with going to the bathroom. John says I'm 58 and listening very attentively. And yeah. Hey, John, you're pretty good. I know you're pretty good about monitoring what's going on with your body. But it's good. It is good. It's good to if you haven't done physicals, do that. Um, yeah. Bob says prostate health source monitoring. Yeah, it is. It is for men. Listen, it's a really it's an organ that if it goes wrong, does a lot of things go through that, and they're important to your health, not from from just how you live, your quality of life. A lot of things can get messed up there. So John says is it a MRI guided operation? I will not have an MRI in advance. At least I don't have one scheduled yet. I had one when they did the last biopsy. We did a full MRI, and then they did ultrasound live and merged it with the MRI to say, okay, this is where it showed up on the MRI, and then they could direct the the core sampler right to that spot and pull those. That was pretty cool. I wasn't comfortable. I'm going to ask if they'll put me out the next time. I don't want to do that thing. That was awful. That was awful. And Tony, yeah, I'm going to be asleep, so it'd be a pretty boring if we did a live stream during the surgery. That would be pretty boring, but I understand as well. Um, this is hilarious. Tony said, so I had my exam. My doc said the last patient asked if the Kleenex was to clean himself up or wipe his tears, and maybe a little bit of both. Just to be honest, it feels like it's forever. It's really about 10 seconds. The doctor doesn't want to be there any more than you do, and they just want to make sure they're not feeling any nodules or any kind of tissue, thick tissue on the walls of your prostate. So Bob says the son of an OBGYN, no squeamishness here. So that's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, these are things, this is interesting. So for me, as I've been through this, I've learned so much about it. And Tony says, and people too often neglect the colonoscopy, right? They have some interesting technology now. know if I should say this live, but they have this Cologuard, right? Where you can either have the camera put in, they put you out, I think, for that now, or they have this thing called Cologuard, and our families called it poop in a box, and you you basically it's a stool sample that you put in a box and you send, and you know, I always just think about the UPS guys that have to, take that. And it's discreet and some of those kinds of things. But it's good for 3 years. I did that last year or 2 years ago. Results came back negative. My insurance covers that at 100%. So I'd have to pay for any of that. And not as long, not as thorough as a colonoscopy. I don't have any history of colon cancer in my family. That's not always the best, but you take that and a test like this and you put them together, right? No family history that you know of. Listen, my dad was a guy who never went to the doctor, never, right? He hated doctors. So I don't know what my dad's family history was. I don't know if he had a prostate problem. I don't know if he had if he had potential colon cancer. He lived to be 83. So, I mean, he did okay, but we didn't know any of those kinds of things. Well, the tests help with that kind of stuff, right? So that may be good to, Tony, that's just a great reminder. Don't neglect that. I think that's at 50. And I did it at 51. I put it off for a little while and then do it. Um, good idea. John says, good idea to get a thorough physical every year. Our insurance pays for everything preventative. Check if you have for your health insurance provider, check what they're covering. Gallup covers, we just had, where it's that season where we're renewing benefits, right? And they were very adamant that 100% preventative is covered for us. So it really encourages us to do that. And he says, if you don't, Tony says, if you don't do your physical, I'll be seeing you in the hospital. And listen, Tony, I wouldn't mind during my surgery. I was coming out. If you were there, that would be pretty great. It's not why I would do it, but it would be pretty great if you were doing that. I know that's maybe not what you do, but it'd be great to see you there. John just had his hearing checked, right? Baseline hearing. That's a good thing to get checked on a regular basis. I was in the military and I'm sure I have some hearing loss at some point. Sarah'd say I can't hear at all. I will probably need some kind of help with that. Both my parents, although it kept them married for a long time because they'd go to bed when they go to bed, they both snored terribly, but they take their hearing aids out and they couldn't hear each other, which was super great. Tony says colonoscopy down to 45 by some recs, by the way. So age 45, I think is what he means that. So good to get it checked. Again, it's a conversation to have with your doctor. Hey, am I in the zone for this? And they might ask you the question, do you have any family history? Might also be a great time to ask your family some of these questions. I know those are uncomfortable conversations. Like, hey, do you remember if grandma had colon cancer or, some of those kinds of things, right? But it may be a good idea to get some of that documented, just because it's just not only for you, but for your kids, right? It's a good thing to pass along to the kids just so they know their family medical history. We're better at it than we've ever been from keeping records, although it's still not great. But maybe a good thing to do. Tony liked my poop in a box. That's what we call it. That's the that's the family name for it. We even have a little jingle. Sammy, who we'll have maybe on the show a little bit later, came up with a little jingle. So we'll do that. Joe says they at least put you out for that. The colonoscopy, the worst part's the prep. Yeah, it's really bad, right? John says when we were 8, we got in trouble for doing the poop in a box thing. So yeah, that's probably not. They weren't looking for colon cancer when you were doing it that way. And then Tony makes a great statement, by the way, in this. He says it's not always how long you live, but how well you live, and there's something to that as well. My mom's different. Maybe she lived to be 90, 93. And the last couple of years were pretty difficult. Now she would tell you she was fine. I'm fine. We're like, Mom, your heart's at 30%. Yeah, I'm fine. I'll be fine. She didn't move around as well. I'll be fine. Kind of thing. Brian says, good point, Tony. But it is that quality of life thing. You guys are doing a great job in the chat room, by the way. it is that quality of life thing, that does matter, right? And yeah, John mentioned this when John was on the show. He all but said, you kind of want to live the best life possible and then just go, right? And so he also says, I'm thinking we could all go on to Jim's procedure for a meetup. Yeah, well, you want to come that Thursday or Friday for a recovery meetup, first week in December. So I couldn't plan any of it, but so yeah, that I'm not sure, Tony, that would be the best meetup ever. But so Tony makes good point, right? And when we think about technology, especially in this area, 23andMe found out. Um, 23andMe found out to be selling some of their data. Oh, I was gonna say some of these kind of test sites that do this kind of stuff have the ability to, when they're not selling their data, apparently. And I don't know if they did or they didn't, but for the results that you get back for it, that they can, there's some markers they can see and say, hey, you might. Now those tests can also scare the crap out of you, where you're like, oh, yikes, right? I don't yeah, that's I um you know, I don't know. It's one of those kinds of things. Yeah, the good news is you go with what you're most comfortable with. But that is you know, that's a decision that you're going to make. The other thing, Tony, another good point. Power of attorneys and living wills, those are all things as we get older. And are easy to do now. Maybe even Chat GPT could. Ooh, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could have Chat GPT write a will for me. Say, hey, this format. I want it to say these things, and maybe it'll crank it out for me. Maybe that would be a good use of Chat GPT. So first week of December, I do, at least at this point, I do plan to podcast that next Thursday. I may cancel it. We'll see. It's an open date right now. I may fill it. I may not. We'll just have to see how it goes. But maybe I'll come back and give you an update like this on on how everything went and all the tech. There's a ton of tech that's going into this, right? I mean, they're going to laser around this and then obliterate it and then suck it out. That's disgusting. It's just disgusting to me. And I'm sure there'll be some tech in the recovery. I'm actually doing some physical therapy before the surgery goes in. I have my pre-op physical here coming up in a couple weeks. So lots of things going on with it. I was chatting with my sister. She says, "How do you feel?" I feel fine. I feel great. I'm excited. Um, and yeah, John. Um, John says, "Update. Here's the machine. Now you can see how they're using it, and here's what they took out." Yeah, I'm not interested in seeing any of it, to be honest with that. I don't want to. I know they'll do videos and all that other kind of stuff, but not. I'm not interested in seeing. I'm not going to show it to you guys for sure. So that's coming up here beginning of December. Thanks for thinking about me and that. And I appreciate you guys letting me kind of work through it on the podcast. I wasn't sure if that'd be interesting or not. But I did want um I did want you guys to hear that. And I do want you to take your health seriously. I miss Mike a lot. And I think if he had caught that a little bit earlier, we'd probably still have him today. Yeah, no guarantees on that. You never know, right? You just you never really know. But earlier is better than later, I think, in most cases. So get yourself checked out. Couple fun health gadgets. I think I've talked a little bit about these before. That the we've had kind of fun with that. Not a, they weren't intentionally purchased for fun, but we've been kind of having fun. One is a pulse ox meter. I'm showing it on the video, audio, folks. It really is just one of those devices that you put on your finger and you push a button, right? And then we always say, "Pull my finger." That's part of the thing. We leave this at the dinner table, and so now it's measuring my. And you can see here I have a pulse. My ox is at 95. My pulse 96. I'm talking. I'm a little excitable. Normally, I sit in the high 70s type deal. I bet if I took a breath and relaxed, I could probably get the pulse down a little bit. What we do at the dinner table on this one is see who can get the lowest heart rate and or the highest oxygen. VO2 max, is that what they call it? No, that's something else. But it's a measurement of the oxygen in your bloodstream. And we bought it during COVID because one of the symptoms of COVID was low oxygen in your bloodstream. And I was just like, maybe we should have this. It was the day when nobody was going out and we're locked in the houses and some of those kinds of things. And it's actually turned into a really fun thing. I know it sounds crazy, but the kids come over every Sunday. My Marine son comes over, and it's one of the first things we do to see where everybody's at. And then we talk about how the week was, and somebody's got this thing stuck on their finger, and they're meditating, trying to get their heart rate down. We talk about, what went on in your week. Was it stressful or not stressful, or those kinds of things. So I never thought we'd turn this pulse ox into a game at the house. But we do, and it's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. It brings some good health conversations and makes kind of gamifies the whole how are you feeling type deal. All my kids are adults, although the little kids love this kind of stuff too because it's got a cool little graph on the front. I guess I have to have my finger in it to make it work. It's got some cool little graphs on the front of it, and so Bob Bob says, "Pull my finger." That's great. It's been very useful to know how bad my asthma is. Yeah, there you go. There you go. The cool to keep around. I don't know, Bob. I think I paid $20 for this, maybe 30. Good to keep at the dinner table. Again, it's one of those crazy. My son just reaches across and grabs it, and we start doing that game. So pull your finger. Kind of a cool thing. And then Tony, you couldn't have built a segue any better for me. He says, I can't emphasize how important blood pressure management is. And so Sarah was having some blood pressure concern, and so we bought basically a portable blood pressure cuff. 40, $50 maybe. I'd have to look on it. She made sure she put her name on it. I think she took it to work. But it is, since Paramed makes this, it has since come home. I think Tony, you could probably get dozens of these kinds. Is it the most accurate thing in the world? Is it good enough? Probably. Probably. So you strap that around, put it in certain, like at heart level, turn the thing on, squeezes, does some measurements. I've been, yeah. Bob says this is the literal game of life. Yes, yeah, this is. We thought it was hilarious. We do it all the time, which is crazy now. These I had to go get these off of our kitchen table because we just leave them there. Um, some instructions too in the box on what not to do and what to do on that. So that's kind of good. Not below your heart, but straight out above it, and it'll even one up there. So then again, blood pressure. Highs, lows. You get a number 120/80, something like that. One of the things, even though I've mentioned I've had some I'm having these health problems now. Blood pressure's never been an issue for me. I always come in 120/80 or some variant of that. And it varies on who's taking it and some of those kinds of things. Sammy and I, many of you know, Sammy and I have been giving blood together for the last 3 years since COVID started. And we're pretty faithful. Every 2 months, we go Red Cross to the Red Cross facility out in West Omaha and give blood together. We also, we're so crazy. We compete on time to see who can give the blood in the quickest amount of time. And they always shake their heads like, it's not a race, guys. So we're like, it is for us. And so I don't 5:30, I think was my last one. And Brian says, can I put a link in the Discord for I'd have to look it up again. Find one. They're at this level, they're all pretty simple. It's made by a Paramed, 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 and then spend as much as you want. The more you spend, probably the better it is. But this one works out really well for us. So John says, yeah, it is hilarious. It's a bloodletting competition. We turn everything into a competition at our house. It's so crazy. But we've been doing that, and they take your blood pressure. They also check the iron in your blood when you're there, and then you get some. I wish they would do a lipid they would do the cholesterol testing. That would be awesome. They have like 5 or 6 vials. They take blood and then they fill up each one of those vials, and they go for testing for various things. It's a pretty great program. The app, the Red Cross app, is actually dynamite. Whoever they paid to build the Red Cross app is incredible. They have a rapid pass on there because they have to ask you all these questions, like 80 questions or something, before you go in there. Have you been out of the country? All kinds of crazy health questions. And but the coolest part about it is they have badges, and so they have like holiday badges. You get 4th of July, different health, different people who are important to the Red Cross. Some of those things are celebrated. Almost all the holidays are on there. And so we've been working over the last couple of years to get all the badges. We're 2 away. In 2024, we will finish up all the badges. And by then we'll have actually given 3 gallons of blood there, which I think is important. Yeah, we've gotten t-shirts and gift cards and some of those kinds of things. I do it without any of that stuff, but it is fun. It's a fun. The app absolutely helps out, and they have some health. They keep track of your health, so I can kind of see, hey, here's where the iron in my blood content has been over time, and they need a certain thing, and then they check blood pressure all the time. I used to get my blood pressure checked almost every quarter at work with in the fitness center. I've never had a struggle with that, but fun. Like, and a fun way to get your kids, even your adult kids, to start thinking about their blood pressure, because too high or too low can be very, very dangerous for people. Tony had said, for he says, Tony says, I can't emphasize how important blood pressure management is, from someone who works in the stroke belt. So it is. It's very, very important and good to know, often. And on this, you can do it for free, and it's easy. Like, I never could understand what they're counting. They put the cuff on it, and squeeze your arm, and then they let the air out, and they'd be counting these things. I could never figure that out. This does it all for you, and it's just fun. Do it with your kids. It's good stuff to. Yeah, and Tony mentions. Hold on. Bob says that it's a race for the cookies. I found out this last time we went, all those treats are donated, which is kind of cool. They had some really good cookies this time. Sammy was like, man, they have upped their cookie game. It used to be like Oreos, but these were like chewy Chips Ahoy. I'm a chewy cookie guy, not a crunchy one. They were delicious. They have juice and water and, a different kind of stuff. You can sit there as long as you want and relax. We don't exercise for a couple days afterwards just because you're definitely tired. You shouldn't drink alcohol after you've given blood, those kinds of things. And then Tony says, super important to have the appropriately sized blood pressure cuff. Yeah, when you buy these, you can buy them in certain sizes, and they've got the ability. This one has the ability. It has a longer cuff in it that fits. Now, depends on the size of your arm. If you're Arnold Schwarzenegger, I don't know, maybe this probably doesn't fit it. But, and again, with things like this, you're just kind of using them for daily maintenance or whatever, right? Just things you can check. You need to be seeing a regular medical professional and having this done by somebody who knows what they're doing, right? On a regular basis, and getting some of that as well. Tony says out in chat, hypertension and sleep apnea is more common in the young these days, especially sleep apnea. And boy, I tell you what, this week, some of because I told you, I think, that during COVID, I stopped sleeping. It was crazy. Like, a couple months in, I just was sleeping maybe 3 hours a night, 4 hours a night. I did that for like a year. Guys, it wears you out. Like, I was tired. And I worked a lot. I mean, because I was pretty stressed. I was creating a lot of content. I was doing a lot of stuff for work. I was having a lot of fun, but I was worried. I mean, I was really, really worried. It was affecting my sleep. Got some exercise going again. Been trying to do some things to kind of lessen the stress. And so even at work, taking on a few less things. Last couple weeks, we had some things going on at work that's been pretty stressful. Man, I could see it affect my sleep right away. Like last night, I was up at 1:50 in the morning and I couldn't go back to sleep. I shouldn't say that. I did nap on and off until about 5:30. But those, hey, every once in a while, it happens, right? Every once in a while it happens. If it becomes a regular reoccurring pattern, or if you're having sleep apnea, that's another good thing. If you snore and it's keeping you awake. I mean, you can snore and not have sleep apnea, but it's a good thing to get checked. Talk to your doctor about it. That may be keeping you awake. You may not be getting. That's where these like the Aura rings, right, or the Fitbit trackers, or your watch, your Apple Watch, or whatever you have. That may be, you might want to turn that on. I know there's an app for your phone. It'll monitor you and listen. You can have it. It will play back your snoring for you. If you're snoring during the middle of the night, tell you when you did and how much you did. Forget the name of the app. You just find it in the app store. I can't recommend. I haven't used any of them long enough to recommend any of them. You have to try some out. But maybe not. Again, maybe not a bad idea from a health perspective to just get that stuff monitored, because it sucks not sleeping. It's terrible, and it just affects a lot of things. I definitely feel not as sharp over the last week that I haven't gotten the sleep that I did. I was back to 8 hours. It was beautiful. I was going to bed at 9 and sometimes getting up at 6 and getting more than that. And it felt really, 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 really good. And so check it out. If you're having trouble with that, maybe it's time. We got all this technology, guys. You got it on your phone and your watch, and I'm surprised you can't tell the A lady. Almost said the name. Tell the A lady to monitor your sleep, and she'd do it for you. John says I sleep immensely better when I use a humidifier in the room. Yep, yeah. Temperature matters too in the room. Shows up on my O2 levels from the Garmin watch, much more stable. So yeah, that works for you. You wouldn't know that, John, if you weren't checking it on your watch all the right time. He says he sleeps from midnight to 8:30 now, and apparently for some people, regular times, going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, using some of those, using Alexa, they have some relaxation apps that you can use, or sounds, crashing water, rain, storms. I love going to bed on a windy night. I love the wind. I love to feel the pressure of the wind pushing against the house. Like if you get a really big wind, I know this sounds weird, but get a really big windstorm and it pushes and you can hear the house kind of creak a little bit. Something about that just makes me want to sleep. I don't know what it is, but I love that. The other night we got some wind, and it just helped me. It just helps me. Yeah, Tony says, cool room, dark room, routine schedule is so important to your sleep. If you're struggling with that, and sometimes it's just hard. It's hard to get all those things pulled together. Weight matters in this area. And so, I've been started intermittent fasting again this week as I was thinking about surgery. I thought, might be nice to lose a few pounds before I go in for surgery. And so, you don't want to lose a lot in a month, but that doesn't hurt. So, some of those things, right? Be thinking about that stuff. All right. So, gentlemen and ladies, I don't know if we have, listen, if we have any women listening to this podcast on a regular basis, would you email me? I won't be creepy about it. I think it's all guys. And so send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv, and I won't, I may not even reply back, but I'd love to see if there's any ladies in the house listening to us. Okay. I don't know, in this one, we're probably 30 some minutes, 35, 40 minutes in. Want to ask you, I've been thinking about changing up the format a little bit. It kind of has to do, because tonight I've had two guests over the last 2 weeks kind of cancel on the time. And I forget who it was. Someone said to me, I had a guest and they were like, wouldn't earlier be better than 8:00? He goes, how many live viewers do you really get at 8:00 Central on a Thursday night? Well, I have 5. At least that's what the says right up there right now. You can't see that, but I don't know. I like 8. I thought about moving to 7. I think at one point we were 7. I moved it to 8 because work kept getting in the way. I was getting home late. I was in a rush. But I had this idea of, for some of these guests where they're a little hesitant to jump in live, to just record them in a time that works for them, and then play those interviews into the show. So maybe we do a 45-minute interview and I add some context around it. I listened to the One Nation Under Whiskey podcast. It's a whiskey, two guys. They're independent bottlers and they talk about whiskey. They have a 2-hour podcast every week. It's crazy. They always do like a 1-hour interview in the center of it. I wouldn't do 2 hours, but that they've recorded and then they play it in. They talk about it before and they talk about it after. And I thought maybe I wouldn't do it every week that way, but if I get a guest and I can't get them to come on Thursdays, I do it and play it in. Still be here so you guys can make comments. I can make comments back, but I thought about doing that. What do you think? Jim at theaverageguy.tv. You can throw it in chat. There's a few there's a few comments coming in on that is now. Uncle Marv says, same problem with my show. Do the time that works best for you. I appreciate that, Uncle Marv. Brian says, sounds like a good idea. So just a thought. And, just maybe a different way I could get them on, get an interview, then come back, add a little comments before we can chat about it as we're talking about it. But I'd like to have some, continue to have some outside influencers talk about some things, maybe grow the show a little bit. So let me know, Jim at theaverageguy.tv, wondering what you would think if I did that and then played them in live. Earlier, you guys asked for a little update on Sammy. She's working at the library, still working part-time. She just got home before we started the show and she loves it there. So she's doing well. We'll get her back on the show here, get an update, maybe first of the year, get an update from her and see how things are going. She's doing great at the library and all things are well with her. We're all busy now. We don't spend as much time. We still eat dinner together every night, which is pretty cool. I should say every night. Thursday night's an exception because she's working and we're getting ready for this. Sarah and I kind of use Thursday nights like a date night sometimes, but she's doing well. So we'll get her back on the podcast. I think producer Bob had asked about winter IoT stuff, and I think we'll wrap the show on this. Just some ideas. Okay, first of all, if you think about your cameras, I just got this email from Ring the other day, and they were like, hey, sometimes in extreme weather conditions, you need to think about your outdoor cameras. And I think that might be the case on a lot of things. Maybe if you have TVs that are outside, I've got a monitor in the smoke shack out in the back. When the temperature gets extremely cold, the recommendation is to make sure it's fully charged. So before you go into a real cold snap, make sure it's fully charged. When you pull the batteries in, do not start charging them up until the batteries have reached room temperature, right? So a few things they want you to do. But you might want to think through your IoT devices, especially those ones that are outside, and think, do they have a battery in them? And how cold is it going to get? How protected are they? Might be one of those things to check. So while you're thinking of checking things, right, we're coming up to that season, right, where we think about in chat room, fill in for me here, help me out, like those things. I'll mention a few. If you have any other things you want to add, throw those in the chat. Tony had mentioned it's a good time to check your subscriptions, right? He found out that I mentioned Ring, and he found out he had been paying for Ring and not using it, right? How many subscriptions do you have? Your taxes, at least in the United States, due April, but we can start filing them usually towards the end of January. If you take a little time to do some tax prep now, you'll be way ahead of the game come January. End of January, get those things filed early. Get them out of the way. I always wait. I'm dumb. I'm stupid about that. I just need to get it done. And now Sarah is working from home. She's going to be a 1099 employee. And I had to file that because of the podcasting stuff. I had to file that, the expanded tax return, which is impossible to figure out. And so I'll have a little more work myself of keeping receipts and some of those kinds of things. So might be worth it to go through your credit card statement or your bank statement and say, hey, are we using every single subscription. How many streaming services are we subscribed to, right? What's the, do we need them all? Might be a good time. I've mentioned this before. 2024 could be a really difficult year financially for folks. Maybe the last 3 haven't been easy for you, right? But maybe there's some things in there that you can easily economize on, right? Get in there, get some of those things figured out. Check your subscriptions. Get ready for your taxes, and maybe get an early jump on. Well, here in the U.S. or at least in the northern hemisphere, might be time to check you might have a humidifier on your furnace, and you haven't checked that filter in 1,000 years, and it's clogged up with all kinds of residue from your water and whatever, right? We might change that filter for the furnace on a regular basis, but I know a lot of folks are like, some of you might even be going, do I have a humidifier on my furnace? You might never you might never know that you're supposed to be changing the wicks that are in there, right? Water drips down, warm air picks it up, pushes that into your house. I In the fall, I have Govee humidistats that I use for the scars. But in the fall, I take one of them out and I put it up on top of the furnace, well, one of the runs on the furnace. And it just gives me some idea what the humidity down here in the basement is from a whole house perspective. Not as important now, but as we get into winter, it can get really dry, right? We have forced air gas, and it can get really dry. So that humidifier on our furnace is important. I use the Govee sensor then to just kind of tell me right now. It tells me it's 71 degrees down here and 42%, which is comfortable at the moment. As the air gets drier outside, make a bigger difference, and that'll come down. And then I can adjust the humidistat or the humidifier. There we go. Can adjust the humidifier from there. Mine's not automatic. I need to adjust it based on the temperature. Yours might be. I'll check it out. Might be a good thing to check, as well as like batteries in your. I know you're supposed to do this. This weekend coming up Sunday. It's daylight saving time. No, it's not daylight saving. It's hard for me not to say daylight savings, but it's just daylight saving time. Check your batteries in your smoke detectors and carbon monoxide and some of those kinds of things. If you have any of those that run on batteries, maybe a good time to check them, right? Get in there and get that done. Bob's got a good one. Close off and winterize your hose bibs, right? I do. I've got hoses, Bob, sitting out there that I didn't clear. It got cold. It'll be okay. The real cold hasn't come yet, but this weekend is the weekend I pull the hoses in, right? It's good. Put them away, drain them, put them away. We're good. I don't think I'm watering anything anymore at this point. I give the lawn maybe 1 or 2 more good mows. You got to get the leaves up, some of those kinds of things. Tony makes a good point. Service your HVAC units. Yeah, we have somebody come in and do it. You can do it yourself. It's not fun, but it's like people who change the oil in their own car, right? You can do your heater or air conditioner or whatever. Check your ducts for leaks, right? Especially in spaces that aren't supposed to be conditioned or aren't supposed to be heated, but the ducts run through them. In some cases, here in our house, we don't have any of those spaces. So if I have a leak, it's fine for the most part. But I have gone through and sealed them all up because it's kind of what I do. Check your windows. I go through at some point and lock all of them. Sometimes during the spring and fall, you open them to get some air in the house, and I just go through and make sure they're all locked off and tightened up. We don't have the greatest windows. Tony, yeah, in Tony's case, ductwork's under the house. He says I spent almost 5 days under my house sealing ductwork, foundation vents, foundation penetrations, installing a dehumidifier because in their case they have too much humidity because of the ground, and actually it's better to keep it drier down there, keep mold away, right? Other things. So that is good. That's tough work, Tony. I don't. And then Bob says, wait, what? It's not automatic? I smell a project. I actually asked this. I think you're talking about my humidifier. I asked the guy, we had the air conditioner put in a couple weeks ago. It's running great, by the way. Can't even hear it. We can sit on the deck you'd barely hear it. The other one was so loud, barely hear it. I won't know the energy savings till next summer because we just don't have enough hot days. But I asked the guy, the owner, it's like, and he would have done it. He probably would have, if he would have given me a price, I probably would have had him do it. I said, should I put an automatic one on there? Because they have ones, that'll do it. He's like, nah, he gets just more things to go wrong. He was an old school. He was definitely an old school guy, which I appreciated. The same one who wouldn't put, he's like, I talked about the Nest thermostat. He was like, yeah, we don't do that. Oh, okay. But he did a great job on the air conditioning install, and pretty fantastic work on that as well. Mark says, get back to batteries. Summer toy battery chargers are critical. The other thing was, Mark, as you're mentioning that to me, actually collecting up your batteries and chargers and maybe getting them in one place so you know where everything's at, and then keeping those things charged. That saved me a ton of time to get all of my chargers in one area, and then I kind of know, okay, that's where it's on top of the beer fridge, and you're like, okay, that's where they go, and just works out nicely to do it that way, and so good stuff. Well, friends, thanks for coming out tonight. We like I mentioned earlier, and yeah, by the way, I will say, I think Joe said it earlier. Says seems fine. It makes it hard for the chat to interact, but with guests, but that's usually minimal. Actually, it's not what I thought that said. What I thought it said is I was doing okay with interacting with you guys with chat. It's harder because oftentimes I read your chat while the guests are speaking. Maybe that's what you meant. And it gives me some time. Here I've got to kind of really look at them quick and be talking and be thinking about. I don't care about the breaks. If I stop talking for a minute, it's fine. You guys are okay with it. Over the next couple weeks, Ed Sullivan is here next week. By the way, if you haven't joined us live, you should. It's super fun. Even if you come late, Mark came in a little late. Mark, good to see you. Thanks for coming out. Oh, and he says, just before I go, he says, winterizing the lawnmower, good idea, right? Maybe changing the oil in the lawnmower for the first time for some, right? On your generators, if you got some of those. Desummerizing the snowblower, pull that thing out, maybe change the oil in that as well. That is a good fall thing to do. Over the next couple weeks, Ed Sullivan is here next week. And if you haven't joined us live before, you should come out and do that. Ed did a fun event for Cigar Authority. We're not going to necessarily talk about that. He used a whole bunch of tech to do that event, a couple batteries and some other stuff. So he's going to bring some cool stuff. We're going to talk about the gadgets he used to get that done. And then our friend, our good friend, our best friend, Aaron Lawrence, will be here on the 16th of November. And we will talk all things Black Friday coming up. I spent so much money on not Black Friday. Well, we'll spend some time talking about it. Maybe there's some things out there. Maybe if you got some Black Friday stuff you're looking for, and in prep for that show or whatever, you can send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv, with some things you're looking for, keeping an eye on Black Friday. We'll bring those into the show and talk about it. And I love that feedback. So Aaron comes and joins us. And then no show on the 23rd. That's the week of Thanksgiving here in the United States. So I'll be taking that off as well. And then as we wrap it, Uncle Marv says, how do you winterize a lawnmower? Well, Uncle Marv lives in Florida. It's never winter in Florida. Never. So Uncle Marv, just change the oil every once in a while. Just pour it down the sewers because it's fine. All drains don't lead to the ocean in Florida. Don't do that, by the way. Don't do that. Change the oil. Well, here, Tony says it. Change the oil. Clean the deck. Change the belts if you have belts. So not all do. Filters. I need to change the filter in my mower for sure. So, yeah, he was making a joke, but that's okay. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. Hope it wasn't too serious, but appreciate you guys going along with me on the journey and on my health journey. And I hope I can be of some kind of service to you on your own and whatever you're doing. And appreciate you guys just listening in and being a part of it. I know it may sound weird it being just me for a whole hour, but we got it done, and we got through it, and it was kind of fun. If you're listening live, I'll stay around for a little bit of post show. That'll make the Patreon folks get to listen to the whole thing. I mean, you can go to the YouTube channel and do it as well, but at Patreon, I send it to you. I send you both the audio and the video from the whole thing, the whole live show. You can get to it. Just kind of easy that way. One $5 plan. You can check it out. Big thanks to Christian. I got to get him back. I had got an email from somebody who said, "Hey, can we get a Bitwarden LastPass update? Like, okay, we made a big deal about this, but what's going on?" So I'll get Christian to come back and update us on that here, maybe in December. We can get that taken care of. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. Oh, I was going to say, big thanks to Christian, Maple Grove Partners. Of course, they host everything I do here is hosted by him except StreamYard. But certainly the Average Guy.tv, both web and media hosting, powered by Maple Grove Partners. You know the spiel. Get what do I say all the time? Get high speed, reliable. And I can't say it because I'm out of. It's really good stuff. Check it out today, maplegrovepartners.com. And he's got plans that start as $10. And so if you need a website, need anything done, give Christian a call. He'll do it as well. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central. Not every, but most. Little less than we used to be. I'm putting more and more conditions on this thing, right? We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at the averageguy.tv/live. Love to have you join us live. And if you can't, that's okay. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Appreciate your feedback. By the way, I'm making a better effort. If you do send me an email, chances are I'm going to ask you if I can call you, if we can just chat a little bit. That happened to Bjorn. And I said, "Hey, can we chat?" And he said, "Yeah, I may do that." So send me an email and we'll chat. Thanks for coming out. For those listening live, we'll do a little bit of a post show. I think with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Yeah, Mark makes a good point there about fuel stabilizer as well. Like if you use ethanol in your gas, even if you don't, I mean, it doesn't hurt to put the stabilizer in there over the winter if it's gonna sit for a long time. Uncle Marv, do you mow during the winter? I imagine you do. I mean, it gets cold, but I'm sure the grass still grows, so you're probably still mowing, right? During the winter. John made a good point. Check that generator. Make sure that generator's still working. I've got one in the garage. I fire it up about every month. Let it run for an hour. Sometimes I power my Sunday afternoon. I do a Sunday afternoon candle with Ed, and I use the generator to power up the shed for that. Tony says, "I've never changed the oil in my Ryder in 6 years." Yeah, you do. The good news is, right? Well, no, there's no good news, Tony. You need to get that. You need to get that changed for sure. Let's see. Let me get a drink here. The snowblower is the one I'm bad about because you use it infrequently in the winter, way less than the lawnmower. And then spring comes around, you start mowing the lawn, you forget that the snowblower needs it. That's the one. Speaking of belts and some of those kinds of things, that's the one that you need changed. Tony, you're just crazy on Twitter, man. Thanks for doing all the posts. Oh, and well, you called yourself out, my friend, on that one. You put that in chat. That was you. That's on you. That's not me. That's on you. Oh, well, it is kind of on me. So, yeah, don't cut your. Tony says he almost cut his hand off just to justify new miter slide. Don't do that. John says, great point on the snowblower. Make sure the spark plug is good. Yeah, check that. Just if it's running rough, those plugs will go for a while. They're not as important as the oil in the belts. Yep, clean the grass off the inside of your lawnmower. It'll totally rot the deck out in the winter if it's got a lot of moisture. What I find, Bob, is here in Nebraska, we get really dry in the fall. And so a lot of the grass that I get by the time I'm done, it's just dry. It is drier than dry. So I don't worry about it too much. I do I get my leaf blower out and blow it off before I put it away for the winter. But it's not put away yet. I've got leaves to mow up this weekend still. Probably have 2 weekends, just to be honest, 2 weekends worth of yard work. Every couple years it starts snowing before I can get that last one in, and the last lawn mow in, and so those leaves they're just rotting out there all winter under the snow or whatever. Oh, sometimes snow melts and they blow away into the neighbor's yard. That happens too. I've got some I put some flower beds in years ago that I just end up throwing all my leaves in, to be honest, and then I'll mow them and chop them up, or they'll start breaking down in the spring. It's been a great way of just keeping that stuff. I have very few. I throw away very little yard waste, only when I have to. This year we did sunflowers, and man, those things made a lot of seeds. So I bet we spread them around to some other places that we want to have them grow next year. Those are hardy. Holy buckets, those are hardy. And they looked good for a while until they didn't. And then you're like, ooh, we need to chop these things down. The stalks on those things are serious. Sunflower stalks, these were about 8 feet tall. I mean, they don't get 8 feet tall by having a wimpy stalk. So it was those. I'm wondering if they will rot over the winter, or if as I get back in the spring, when I step on them, they'll still be there. We'll have to figure that. I guess I could have pulled them. I didn't. They were pretty rooted in. So Joe says, I try to run non-ethanol fuel for my generator. Good call. Yeah, if you can. I have just one gas station near me that sells that. So I do that. I still put stabilizer in it though. I still use stable for it. Mark's up in Canada. Says we've had a bit of snow so far. We haven't had any. We had a dusting the other Sunday. Last Sunday we had a dusting. Brian, I don't think you need a snowblower. I think you're okay. He's down in Phoenix. Uncle Marv's taking off. Thanks for coming out, Uncle Marv. Appreciate it. Good stuff. I'll have to catch up with you too at some point. I need to get you back on, see how things are going. Tony said 75. Yeah, we're going to rebound this weekend to 65 and 66 on Sunday and Monday. So some beautiful, beautiful weather coming. Guys, I'm going to let you go. I've been talking a lot. I don't think I should talk anymore. And thanks for coming out. Thanks for sitting through my babbling. We had 5 on the show and we started in 10 now. So for those of you who came out late, Mark and a few of others, thanks for doing it. Thanks for coming out. You missed. I did a kind of a health update in the early part of the show. If you didn't hear that, you can go back and listen to it. But thanks for coming out. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate all that you do. Come join me next week with Ed. Good night, Joe. Oh, Mark says non-ethanol fuel is now banned up here. Okay, there you go. Brian says take care all. And thank you for coming out. We'll see you next week with Ed Sullivan. Everybody take care. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Don't cut your hands off, Tony, with a miter saw. And we'll see you guys next week. Take care, everybody.